back to
The Mentors.
This is Vadim.
And Sergey.
And you're listening to our weekly segment called The 5-Minute Pick-Me-Up, where we tell you stories to motivate you for the week to come. And today's episode was actually inspired by a tweet that I saw by Naval Ravikant, who is one of the founders of AngelList. He's a prolific angel investor and I would say thinker of our times. And his tweet was pretty simple. It said the following: schools aren't about learning, offices aren't about working, churches aren't about praying, restaurants aren't about eating. Obvious now? And actually, there was another person that responded at @orangebook_, who said, for those wondering, schools are about keeping kids busy, offices are about keeping adults busy, churches are about keeping the rest busy, and restaurants are about filling up the remaining time. Now, obviously, these are some bold statements, but I think that there is some truth in here. And that is to say that in order to move through life, we do need to have something that we're focused on, something that we are working towards every single day. And the way that we fill the space of time oftentimes may be boiled down to something really simple: staying busy.
And that's easier said than done right now while we're all in quarantine. Now, many of us have varying amounts of free time right now, and staying busy can be a bit of a challenge, but there's a bit of an uplifting story that I heard this week, a pick-me-up, if you will, from a student that emailed me. You might know that pretty much all students, at least on the East Coast and some of these major cities, in colleges across the country, are forced to do online instruction, meaning that most of them are at home in quarantine, either in their own apartments or with their families, and they're trying to figure out how to fill the time in between right now. And this particular student wanted to feel like he's adding value in his community. And he actually reached out to me to set up a meeting to figure out how to scale this mini operation that he developed in helping hospitals in the local area where he is in Connecticut get personal protective equipment. We all know there's a shortage right now, and any little bit helps. And by the time I got with him on a call earlier this week, he had already set up a GoFundMe campaign where he raised over $2,000 to create personal protective equipment. And he started to reach out to seamstresses in the local area where he lived in a small town in Connecticut, motivated to help hospitals get equipment because both of his parents happen to work for the Yale hospital system. So he sees firsthand the challenges of the fact that people don't have enough of this equipment. And by this time, he already has 50 seamstresses that are also helping self-organize to create hundreds of these masks and coverings for masks. And he called me to figure out how can he scale this, and we talked about brainstorming how to reach out to local businesses to get the operation going even bigger, how to use social media to organize these seamstresses and get deliveries to happen in a way that is sterile and gets the right equipment to the right hospitals based on their guidelines for what kind of equipment that they need to get. Long story short, this guy has been so busy in the last 2 weeks that outside of class, he hasn't had time to think of anything else. And he really feels like he's adding value to his small community in Connecticut. And he wants to figure out how he can do even more. And I think we can all take away from this story.
Now, for you, this may mean something different. I mean, look, we've already been through this and in this environment for the better part of the last month or so. And I think in the beginning, if anybody told you that if you would have to be in self-isolation, be in quarantine for a month or more, it would seem crazy. And yet, many of us have been able to figure out how to allocate our time. It makes me think of my friend who is finishing up nursing school. She actually messaged me this weekend, I messaged her. I asked her how her weekend was, and she said, I actually forgot that it was the weekend because they're so busy now scrambling to make sure that they can finish school as quickly as possible so she can get on the front lines and start helping out, given the knowledge that she's been able to get in nursing school. It makes me think of my other friend who started writing a book and now is just spending a lot more time on that writing. And it makes me think of the countless families that are now spending a lot more time together and are realizing how valuable it is to actually have more time with their kids and their family. Of course, there are some challenges with that as well, but all of these things are actually helping them get through this difficult moment. So for every single person out there, how they stay busy, how they spend their time might be different. But even though that is a relatively simple piece of advice, it is something that's going to help each and every one of us get past this difficulty. And it'll, quite frankly, help time fly by if you find that one thing that can help you focus for the foreseeable future.
Now look, this student that reached out to me, nobody's going to be covering his effort on the news, right? I mean, there's other efforts happening all over the country that people are covering, and it doesn't really matter. He's not doing it for some sort of recognition. He's doing it just for the purpose of self-fulfillment and to feel like he's actually making a difference. And when he looks back at the time spent during this crisis, he's going to feel proud of that. So don't feel like you have to do something that, impacts the world in a major way. Even if you just focus on yourself, on that project that you wanted to finish, on helping someone in your neighborhood or calling your loved ones, but actually spending your time in a productive way where you don't just spend time watching the news and dwelling on all the negativity, you are definitely going to come out of this crisis in a better position than you might have otherwise. And overall, it's going to be a positive impact on both you and your community, whether you're focusing on yourself inwardly or outwardly, how you can impact others.
Now look, we talk a lot about experiences on this show. And of course, for many of us right now, the different experiences that we can have are fairly limited. And for some of us, it may seem like a pretty big lift. How can I focus on myself right now with everything that's going on around the world? How can I focus on working when I'm worried about my own health? And those are valid concerns and valid questions. But oftentimes, our minds invent how difficult something might be or how difficult an experience might be before we even dive into it. We promise that if you actually take the first step and start spending your time towards that pursuit, whatever it means for you, you will find that it actually feels fulfilling. I'll make the simple analogy again of going to the gym. Once you get to the gym and you're there doing the workout, it feels much better than what your brain told you about not wanting to go to the gym. Once you start writing, for example, if that's what you want to do, you'll notice that once you get into a state of flow, it's actually a great experience and actually makes you fulfilled and happy, as opposed to what maybe your lizard brain told you would happen if you decided to start writing. So even though that first step might be difficult, we urge you this week to take it, because it actually might end up helping you get through this difficult moment by allowing you to focus on a particular area.
Thank you so much for tuning in, for listening to this show. We are all in this together. If you have any questions or any thoughts, comments that you want to make about your own story of how you're getting through this difficult time, whether you're starting a venture or just a new project, we'd love to hear it. Just shoot us a note at info@thementors.co. And if this episode helped you just by listening to it for the 10 minutes that you did, please share The Mentors with a friend. Tell them to subscribe. They can find it on any podcasting platform and would really appreciate that.
And one more thing. You've heard us talk about School 16 for the last few weeks. If you are interested in furthering your career in tech, or you just want to explore it, this week we have a senior director of product that we're hosting a free live class with on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Just go to school16.co. That's school16.co. And drop your email. You'll get an automatic email response, which will show you how to RSVP to the class this Wednesday. And we're going to talk about how you could land a career in product management if that's something that you ever thought about doing.
That's one way that we're staying focused, is by offering these free classes, and it's really been helpful for Vadim and I. Time really is flying by, and we truly hope you find that for yourself. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you on Wednesday.